Hello, and welcome to another episode of For the Love of Sports. My name is Michael Rasile. This is a show where we get to talk about sports, we get to talk about business, and we get to talk about everything in between. Wherever you're listening, however you're listening, please like and subscribe on YouTube, 5-star review on Spotify, 5-star review, and say some nice things about me and my incredible guests over on Apple. Today, I have Darryl Haberman. He is the president of Haberman Consulting, formerly with with NHL and Disney. I guess Disney, ESPN, it's all the same thing at the same time. Darryl, how you doing today, man?
I'm doing great, Michael. Yeah, thanks. Disney streaming services, that encompasses a lot. ESPN plus, Disney plus, the former NHL business. But yes, no harm, no foul.
I appreciate that, man. Thank you so much. I'm very excited to talk about all those things, right? Not often do we have someone who's a pioneer in the space, especially when it comes to streaming, especially when it comes to some of the things that Disney's doing now, but the NHL and the MLB were doing way back in the day. So definitely excited to have those parts of the conversation and then learn a little bit more about what you're doing with your own consulting firm, how you guys are finding business, what you're doing. But before we get to all of that, Darryl, the first question I have for everybody on the For the Love of Sports podcast is, why do you love sports so much?
Oh my gosh, is there better drama that exists in this world? I mean, as much as you might think that the underdog is going to get, murdered and lose by 5 touchdowns, we've seen better stories play out. Underdogs win, David versus Goliath, skill, the finesse, the theater is just exhilarating. You never know what you're going to get, and so that's why sports is the best drama. Entertainment dollar. I think it's there's so much happening in and around the world of sports. Besides, the amateurs that are usually watching, and maybe they played or had visions of grandeur and wanting to be a professional. But sports just hits on all cylinders. I think for me and many others, and that's why there's the competition for the almighty sports dollar, the streaming space, the website, app development, you name it, new venues going up, taxpayer money, this, that, everything's connected to sports because it really is the best.
It really is the best. Couldn't put it any better. I mean, I've talked about it on the show before. I don't know why people watch the Kardashians. Like, to each his own, of course. I'm not here to shame or make any judgment, but I could give you a college football game that has significantly more drama than any episode of the Kardashians has ever had in my entire life. Like, I don't understand it. Again, to each his own. I'm not here to point fingers or say anything, but I love sports specifically for that reason. The drama, the storylines, as you said, the underdog, David and Goliath, right? We have that in college football right now. We have it every year, it seems like. The NHL. Give me a triple overtime NHL game in the playoffs and inject it right into my veins. Like, I will stay up till 3 o'clock in the morning watching the Sharks and the Oilers, two franchises I could not care less about. But if they're in double overtime, Darryl, I'm absolutely elated at 2 o'clock in the morning. I couldn't ask for anything.
Oh yeah, exactly. I mean, just back and forth. The guys are dying on the bench, tired. It's these are swing games and playoffs, or for the series clincher. All the marbles are there. I mean, I'm a little biased having worked at the NHL for over 2 decades, but hardest trophy to win. Guys laying it all on the line in triple overtime, where they know one mistake can end up in a disaster. The series is over, and they're going to have to try at it the next season. And then there's new injuries and all sorts of scenarios come to light. So these guys give it their all. It's back and forth. Hopefully, some good saves, some good opportunities. The fans, the crowd shots during these games, the agony, the drama. I mean, it's all there. Plus, that there's going to be a new hero that's crowned. It's whether a guy like Alex Ovechkin, who's done it before and been that overtime hero, or this, third line winger who just has the goal of the century. There's always that mystique. What's going to happen in a Stanley Cup playoff game that's gone to quadruple or triple overtime, as you say.
What was it, a couple years ago in the pandemic when we had the bubble? We had the 6 or 7 overtimer. I watched almost every second of that, and I loved it the entire time.
Yeah, that was a game 1 too. That was Columbus versus Tampa Bay. Yeah.
The Lightning, yeah, and then Lightning ended up. Everyone was like, "Well, they're dead because they played in an extra 2 games." It's like, nope, they ended up winning the whole thing. So that's another story for another time. But I agree with you. If there's one thing that I can ask cameramen everywhere, TV executives and producers everywhere, give me more crowd shots. When the home team's losing, I want to see the surrender cobras. When the away team's losing, I want to see them pointing that two fans' face. That's always my favorite thing. But we don't have to get deep down there. We're talking about the NHL. Let's just talk about your time at the
Sure.
NHL. Darryl, you spent, as you said, almost 2 decades. 2 decades? Over
Over
2 decades?
yeah,
Almost? Over.
22 years total.
My
16
goodness.
years at headquarters and 5.5 plus through some rights deals.
There you go. So spent a lot of time with the NHL, watched that product grow to what it is now, right? You were there when ESPN had it. You were there when ESPN didn't, and you were there again when well, now recently ESPN got it again while you were at Disney, I'm sure, when all this was happening. So it's funny to kind of see some of these things come and go like that, and the interest in the sport that is tied, unfortunately or fortunately, depending on the way you look at it, to the worldwide leader themselves. But I am curious. I saw one thing on your LinkedIn that just stuck out to me: editorial director. That started in 1999. I mean, there was magazines in 1999, right? Like, I guess, like, were there websites? Did NHL.com exist in 1999? I'm curious, like, how do you get into, and what did really, I guess, is the more important question. What does the content, quote unquote, game look like in, prior to Y2K?
Okay, so in 1999, in true transparent fashion, I didn't start as an editorial director. I started as associate producer, someone that was helping sort of lay that foundational groundwork for teams that didn't really have their own digital media departments, their content buckets. The NHL had just formed a venture with IBM called NHL ICE, NHL Interactive Cyber Enterprises. So I was helping the Islanders, the Bruins, the Penguins, Atlanta Thrashers, remember them? Uh,
Oh, I do. Yeah.
the
The Jets
yeah,
now. Yep.
USA Hockey, and then servicing and producing some stories that were going up on NHL.com's homepage. So one thing led to another, but essentially we were digitizing as much as we can. I used to work every 7 weeks the overnight shift, so I would come in, punch in at like 6 o'clock at night and work till 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock in the morning, depends on overtime and how the technology was working at the time. But I used to go upstairs to our sort of booth and really produce a few highlights that were recorded via VCR. Remember that technology? It was really, really like total, like, you feel like that bootstrap mentality where, again, here was a producer that had editorial discretion to put highlights on the homepage, write the credits, the captions, everything like that. And that was really 1999. By 2004, we're already bringing on the NHL had new office space, and the lockout unfortunately happened after the World Cup of Hockey. But when we really picked it back up after Ovechkin and Crosby came into the league, we had NHL studios became a bigger thing. So there was more of an organized science and infrastructure into these are real, video editing suites and bays and the Avid systems. And here are people that are actually just going to focus on digitizing content and building out a digital library. There were folks like me that were producing and writing, reporting, building chats, blogs, and other programs, in a different capacity as the NHL digital footprint was growing. So, as far as the growth and where we are in 22, 23 plus years later, it is insane. I could that's a different podcast for a different day, I guess. But I wanna stay on point with your questions.
Yeah, no. It's okay, man. This is a conversation. We'll go off on tangents. I'll bring it back. That's my job. Don't you worry about it. And I think it's just so interesting, right? We're talking 1999. It sounds like a million years ago. Now that we're here in 2023, right? It was only 24 years ago. Like it's crazy to think how far some of this stuff has come as quickly as it's come, right? I remember the first person in my high school that had an iPhone and everyone being like, "Whoa, you can go on the internet with that thing?" And we are talking about 1999 where you needed VHSs and VCRs to cut up film to then put on to the homepage. I am curious how many people in 1999 were going to NHL.com. Like, are we talking hundreds,
No,
thousands? Like
yeah, no,
I'm
it was
curious.
it was still, I'm not going to say ahead of its time, but we were structured and set up in such a way, and you probably know this maybe a little bit about the NHL fan. They've always been tech savvy. They're not afraid to, spend some time and resources, getting entertained. So we had thousands of fans, and data science wasn't as big back then, so I don't even recall any of the spreadsheets or dashboards that we had created. KPIs are different now than they ever were, but we had some engagement for sure, and that's what allowed us to, start building a blog community and get into the podcast era, and become more, mobile app focused, because we understood the needs and wants and desires of the hockey fan, whether you were a male or a woman, you attended games or you watched from afar. There was a good cross section of digital offerings, and what we came to know and understand. Plus, through some technology and rights partners, Google, Amazons of the world, the people that were putting on robust programs and knew how to engage audiences. That's the people that the NHL started taking on, some corporate sponsors, people that helped develop that footprint.
Very smart. Yeah, I take advantage of it, as you said. And NHL fans, I always feel like they're always willing to go above and beyond to find their sport because it's not the easiest to find in most situations. Now, again, it's on ESPN. Now it's on ESPN Plus, and I watch hockey all the time. It's my second TV. If there's not a football game on, there's probably a hockey game on ESPN Plus, so I throw it on. White ice looks nice, pristine, big hits every once in a while, a cool goal, a nice save. That's a nice second screen for me. I'm never too angry about it. So with your time at the NHL, kind of being there, as you said, for 22 years, watching it grow, how was content always? So you became a associate producer or assistant producer. I apologize. I don't want to mix up your words, but so you start as that. Like, was content always something that you loved? Was content always something that you were like, hey, I think that this is going to be the quote unquote future, right? As we see now, everything, if it's not content, it's what is it? Was that something that you latched on too early, or was that something that they put you in that box and you actually were able to flourish understanding, hey, this is probably going to be pretty important just moving forward?
Yeah, well, it was a little bit of both. I did go to school for sports media journalism. I did the TV, radio thing. I wrote, I reported. It was very competitive industry to break into and be in front of the camera. So I started, building more of a repertoire around production and understanding, what a good visceral image is, what a great headline is, how to captivate, how to tell a story. On top of that, I've played sports. My dad had season tickets to the Islanders in their heyday. So I was a Long Island kid. I played lots of hockey. It was a great marriage. I was given a chance to work alongside the real writers, the people that actually wrote and reported a lot. I got to collaborate with them, build programs. I got to try my hand. I bylined, I don't know, probably 25, 30 stories over in the early years, before focusing more on building teams and system solutions for the NHL staffers that were dedicated to NHL.com and the mobile app. Partnering with our product guys, our web team, developing a content management system that was going to best support what we were looking to do. And you start realizing, all right, there's lots of hard work and strategy behind this, and how do we really develop this out so that we can grow and iterate and develop? And that's really, that was my calling. That's something that I'd love to be, not only a subject matter expert, to someone that was going to help orchestrate and work with sales and marketing teams and be cross functional in my job and my function.
That's awesome. It's super smart. Obviously, you made the you made the right bet, I guess is a good way to say it. Considering now kind of what I know we're getting into Web3 and we have those conversations all the time, but Web2 is just content, right? It's putting up videos, it's putting up pictures, it's putting up tweets. It's just getting information out there as quickly as possible, for the better or for the worse sometimes, but getting that information out there. So you started all this during, I guess we'll call it Web 1, and easily had a great advantage with it going into Web 2. And as you said, kind of your calling, and not just the fact that the making of the content, but it was the system, it was the strategies behind it that you were able to take advantage of and put those put everything into place so that this well-oiled machine is able to run and pump out the content that you guys are looking for. So kudos and congratulations. Very, very impressive on your part.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Please. Yeah, that's why I like having these conversations. I get to learn from cool people like yourself. And I know one other thing when we spoke prior to this that you spoke about a little bit was the actual help in terms of the athletes themselves. So one thing that we hear, and baseball and hockey both fall into this, kind of from the outside at least, right? Basketball. Who cares about teams? It's all about the stars, right? Like what's LeBron doing? What's Steph Curry doing? Doesn't really matter what jersey they're wearing. We could tell, like with LeBron, he changes teams, it feels like every couple of years at this point. People are going to follow him. They're going to see what he's doing, right? In NFL, it's all about the quarterbacks and a couple of the receivers, and that's about it. Everyone else is kind of, they're nice to haves. But the MLB and the NHL usually get criticism from this, for better or for worse, where their stars aren't really showcased that much, right? Austin Matthews, Connor McDavid. Like, why do I only see these guys in a couple commercials every once in a while? Mike Trout, just to bring baseball into it, one of my favorite sports. What was the idea, and was this your idea, whose idea, to get behind trying to help these athletes create content a little bit more and help these athletes get their personal brands out there? Because I want to see them more. They seem like funny guys. Like, let me see them more. Let me hang out with them more. Let me engage with them more. Where was the idea behind this, and how did you get put up to get put up to being one of the head guys on this?
Sorry, I realized I had put mute. There's some things going on in the background here. The So great question. Again, part of it is orchestrating programs and understanding what fans desired. Fans wanted some of these marquee players to be available, answer some questions. So I started putting together some chats. We had a good run at it at the draft and organizing. I was helping moderate chats where you mentioned Connor McDavid. I remember, the draft in Florida where he came through. The gauntlet did the photos and interviews and signed his hockey apparel. Did all the requirements. Part of one of the stops on the tour is stop in and chat with NHL.com users. So I was really focused on building a chat where fans can ask questions, of course, and we'd make it comfortable and casual. I did that throughout the season too, where we'd occasionally get like a guy like Chris Pronger or Jeremy Roenick. They'd come through either the NHL office or we'd get them on the phone and we'd do a little bit of a Q&A, and we would have to do some pre-promotion or work through some social media where the Edmonton Oilers or the San Jose Sharks or the LA Kings were going to make their player available or their executive available. And when you figure out all the what the recipe should look like, it's what's the ingredients and what's the best way to go about building this cake, this puzzle. So I've through a little bit of ingenuity and being industrious, you tap people on the shoulders or you volunteer and start taking this as your pet project. And so I did a lot of that, and I understood how people work, what motivates people, of course, but also in showing my creative muscles. It's like, let's build a program here that we can then take to the sales and marketing people and spin out into a new sponsor and be a little bit more progressive and show that we're into showcasing personality, and we're not just reporting on game scores and showing highlights, but there's actually more to this NHL.com experience. There's more here. Fans should be invested. And how can we take something that we've learned through this, and we know it's easy to facilitate, folks like me can moderate and ask good questions. We could get fan submissions. It becomes much more multifaceted programming, and that's really what has sort of guided me or been like something that I valued in my business, in my repertoire, as I'm now 23 years plus in my business life.
It's very impressive, man, and I think it's so important that athletes. It used to be just about the teams, and in certain sports, right, it is still about the teams, but now there's so many. We can use the M word as millennial, we can use the Z word and Gen Z. Like, oh, all they care about is X, Y, and Z. Like, actually, we care about a lot of shit. We're just normal people, we're just a little younger. I think that's all, guys. It's really not rocket science here, but that's another podcast for another day, as you like to say. But it's I do want to know what the stars are doing. I want to know who they are and what they like, and it's cool. I watch them on TV every night, but I don't know. It's kind of like that Howard Stern effect, right? Or it's people that you aspire to be friends with. You want to know more about them, right? Like, I think I could sit down with Connor McDavid and crush a couple beers and have a good time. I don't know. I don't know that much about him, though, and I want to learn more about him to say, like, no, I definitely could crush some beers with Connor McDavid, and I think it would be a really good time, right? It's that opportunity that fans. That's kind of all we want. Like, I don't think it's crazy to think, like, what's Mike Trout doing right now? I don't know. I'd like to hang out with him. Maybe we don't have to drink too many beers, just a couple, just to kind of loosen up the conversation a little bit. But really, just be able to talk to these people, because there's people. I've had many athletes on this show. I have Richard Jefferson on the show, right? He's probably the most famous person I've had on this show. So happy that happened.
How dare you?
Sorry. Yeah, I know. I'm sorry, man. NBA champ. It's really hard to top that. But I mean, like, he was just a super cool guy. Like, and we were just having a fun conversation. It was a media hit, but it just turns out he's just a really nice guy. And, I told him I'm in New Jersey, and he's like, oh, I played for the Nets. I was like, yeah. I know you did. I used to go see your game. Like, we kind of had that little back and forth, and it was really fun, and he was just a really cool guy. And I think more of that in all sports is going to be better, because we want to have affinity not just for the team, not just for the sport, but I want to have affinity for these athletes and who they are and what they do, and personal brand, right? That's a huge thing. NIL and the personal branding of these athletes. I think that's only going to get bigger, and it sounds like you were closer to the forefront about that, really just trying to help these athletes in the NHL become some of those people that I could say, yeah, I'd have a beer with them.
Yeah, and you're describing a lot of what I'm up to now too, and you talk Web3 a little bit. We're not quite there. We've seen some things in the blockchain or crypto that get.
I don't think Web3 is really quite there yet. I think it's coming 100%, and I've had awesome conversations about it. But, like, I don't think Web3 is Web3 yet.
Exactly.
I think it's still kind of like,
and that's my point. Yeah. So when you're talking Web2, Web 2.5, that's kind of the arena where fans and athletes and brands can come together. Teams, franchises, they understand the creator economy, what powers the fans, what fans want. They don't know too much. There's a little bit, okay, we have 70,000 people fill our stadium for a Sunday game versus the Minnesota Vikings. What do we know about those 70,000 fans? They might interact occasionally with our social channels. They might have a dad that brought them to a game, 10 years ago. Maybe there's season tickets in that family for 40 years. It's well within the best interest of the team to start knowing about the every whims, desires of their fans if they're going to build really meaningful relationships. Because there's brands and, okay, the Cowboys, America's team, this, that, the other, the Yankees who have 26, 27 World Series, and there's a lot of history. But there's lots of moments in time and significant events that happen. You don't always bank on them. There's centennial seasons. There's things that go on, or there's walk-off home runs, or there's unfortunate moments like the Monday night's game versus with the Bengals and the Bills, where now there's so many people that have a story to tell. It's unfortunate. Hopefully, we still get some more positive news out of that front. But there's so much there from a storytelling perspective that, you know, if there's some good, and I know we saw some good in the fans donating and even former players donating, um, to Hamlin's charity, there's lots of opportunities to kind of tell the story or share perspective. And hopefully, when there's more collaborations that are easy to facilitate, you're going to get better programs, better podcasts, better opportunities to reward people for sharing content and ideas. And that's really the that Web 2.5 play, is understanding how we could best put together a platform, understand the data, the people, match some brands, slap on a sponsor, make things happen easily, more easily than they used to exist 5 or 10 years ago. I think we're in a great intersection of fans' appetite, teams wanting to play that catch up game from what they learned in COVID, or the revenue opportunities that they didn't quite have, or they're playing catch up mode now, and so kind of piecing it all together is really what I'm trying to do. You mentioned Richard Jefferson. If Richard Jefferson, obviously he probably has a marketing partner, but he understands it. He's got charisma. He's been on TV. He understands how multimedia works. But there's a great opportunity for some of these young college athletes that are involved in NIL, or maybe they're not involved, but they're very enterprising and entrepreneurial, and they wanna capitalize on all the right moments in time and opportunities. And if they had folks that they could know, like, and trust and work with, that are fans, or they could meet at tailgate parties, they could host some things on behalf of big sporting events that are happening. I think there's the world is our oyster, as they say. So much is happening in that prism right now, and that's really where my focus is on, and building out some of my ventures.
Yeah, and I think it makes sense. And you bring up the pandemic a little bit, right? And teams playing catch up, or teams finding new opportunities during the pandemic to take advantage of some of the things that were happening. And I'm a very turn a negative into a positive kind of person. And I mean, just one example, the industry that I work in, sports gambling, right? It was talked about, but really, like, a couple states were legalizing, everyone was still shying away, and then all of a sudden taxes went through the roof in terms of what the states were paying out, what the federal government was paying out with the stimulus checks, with everything that was happening during the pandemic. And now all these states are like, wait, do we have like a flip a switch and find $100 million? Oh wait, we do. It's sports gambling and casino. Yeah, okay, let's all do that. And now, as you saw during the pandemic, it was a wave that just went across the country of, okay, legalize, 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 legalize. And we're seeing more. Ohio just went legal. Maryland just went legal. Maryland kind of messed a bunch of stuff up, but just the opportunity to do that, right? And, it's very easy to swing things when you want them to happen, right? It was very easy to say, well, oh, gambling's ruining lives. It's ruining, families, yada, yada, yada. Roger Goodell came out and said, gambling ruins families. And now, he takes billions of dollars from these companies, which we love the irony, Darryl. We love that irony. But I'm all for it because I love the industry. And it's just so interesting to me that things like that happen, right? Podcasts, that digital content, those digital series that really weren't built out, and they were kind of half-assing it along the way. You needed to do that, because if you weren't making any money, right? Like, because there was nothing else that you could possibly do. And I'm excited to have a couple guests coming up here in the next few weeks that had great stories around that. So I'm very excited to talk to them. But it sounds like you were able to pay attention and focus and understand what was happening during that time. And as you said, build out those moments in time where these athletes, now NIL athletes, professional athletes, teams, are able to take advantage, monetize, but not just monetize to monetize. You're able to actually get them in front of people that are hungry for this type of content. Because I don't know about you, man. When was the last time you just sat down and just clicked on the clicker and been like, oh, what's on TV? Like, I legitimately do not remember the last time where I was just like, up. Oh, no, I don't want to watch that. I don't want to watch that. I know exactly what's on and when I want to watch it. Or I go to YouTube and find, a cooking show there. Or I go to, this, website and find, a streaming service that I want to watch something on. Like, the content is more direct now. Whereas before you had to go, it kind of came to you. Now you go to it. It's there. I know where it is. I'm going to go find it. And it sounds like you've been able to kind of, for lack of a better term, grow up in that space, but then, have the ability to surround yourself with smart people to really master
Yeah,
it.
building that appointment viewing experience where people come in and they know what to expect, what bells or whistles or not. Building experiences around there, promoting of events before they happen. During the event, there's takeaway content. There's things that kind of build that portfolio out. So yes, I mean, in many respects, it's always thought of comprehensively. It's not just this one moment in time. What do we do to capitalize on the momentum? Engage the audience, whether you're, it's not distracting them, but you're really, or, you selling an experience. And then from there, if there's good solid opportunities and traction that can get developed, you want to build out that journey. So that's really how I've always thought, and why I enjoy being a strategic advisor, someone that can coach and counsel an entire operation around some best practices. I understand digital media and marketing, of course, the written word, the power of video, everything like that is thought of with a 360-degree view, because you got everything's connected to each other. And in the Venn diagram of sports, there's so much there, right? And that's it. People that are financially oriented might have a good thought or a vision on a way to make things, a little bit more clean or less cumbersome. And then there's marketing people that have so many ideas, and then there's writers that are like, oh, I want this story. So you've got to make sure that everyone can play nice in the sandbox, and that's really what my role, and how I seek out who good partners would be, the people that get the power of sport, the people that understand how things can work, and really how to really optimize a business.
And how do you find those people? Not only just the people to surround yourself with, but also the brands that you want to work with, the athletes or the teams, or I guess the subject that you want to work with. I mean, there's a lot of business development here from multiple facets. You're just one guy, Darryl. I know you're amazing, but you're just one guy, man. Like, how do you find all these people? Because there's so many
So
different areas that you need to touch, and especially on the brand, you have to talk to the right person or talk to the right people, and at the team or the person, right? Like, how are you able to put all of this together so cleanly, it
So
sounds like.
there's a few different roads that I've taken. A lot of them, thankfully, in being in business for 23 years, I have a good amount of contacts that work in the same industries for the same teams, the same leagues, whether they're still there or they've started their own business enterprise similar to myself. There's also the networking groups. The I've done some stuff in the startup space, so you get to meet some real innovative thinkers. You learn about technologies, you learn about new platforms. I've been fortunate to um, have met the right people, and people that understand the value that I can bring to an organization, and they've been working on my behalf, maybe keeping me in mind as they connect with other people in and around sports. I've also very big into sort of like that venture starter space. So in that community, there's lots of people that fund programs. There's former athletes that get involved in some venture programs. You're probably hearing about those more often. Guys that have so much money in the bank, and they have their foundations and their meaningful causes, but the art of networking is super important. I do a lot of research on my own during the day in between meetings, and even coming on to podcasts such as yours. There's lots of great thought going around. I take that think tank mentality, and I'm not afraid to you know um, uh, you know be opinionated, and really share my story, and tell people how things could be better, or where I can fit in their matrix essentially. And that's I don't have all the right pieces together right in the here and now. I've done a pretty good job. I'm very happy with my business and some of the opportunities, but I need more strategic partners, and that's really why I'm aggressive in talking about what's important to me, the ventures, making introductions, being a connector, and leaning into things that I know I could optimize in some of these early stage functions. There's lots of help that's necessary. And if people, are looking for a good guide, someone that gets it from many different levels and can share perspective and calls of X versus Y, that's the realness and the voice that I like to carry. And it's been fruitful. And again, I'm happy with business, but you always want to be fully sustainable and have more projects and more retained relationships. So when I know that I have enough in the tank where I could hire a lot of people, and I'm doing things that are feel good, then I feel like I've made it. But right now, it's still a lot of hustle and chase.
There's no such thing as feeling like you made it, man. Whenever you get to that point, it's always like, well, I could do more, and I'd rather do this, right? So there's never that
The
feeling. So
work-life
kudos and
balance. Yeah,
congratulations.
exactly.
Exactly. Yeah. Right. Kudos and congratulations to you for building the business. I think it is awesome, and the opportunity again, Haberman Consulting. I mean, we've kind of beat around the bush a little bit about it, and we've really been able to dive into it here for the last couple minutes. But I'm just kind of curious, like from the like going out on your own standpoint, like starting your own business. I mean, you were a guy, you worked at the NHL. We didn't even get to touch on Disney. We might be able to here at the end for a little bit, but you worked at some, major giant corporations, some of the biggest in the sports space, Disney now, obviously with everything, ESPN and the such. Like what was it like finally going out and being like, I'm good. I'm gonna start my own, and I'm gonna see what I'm capable of doing. Because yeah, you probably could have went to one of the other leagues. You probably could have went to another big corporation and got another job. And yeah, you made some good money. But like, what was the impetus to actually finally saying like, you know what, like that's always gonna be there. My expertise speaks for itself. I don't need to sell myself too much. Let's go out and do my own thing and see what we can do.
Well, great question. I mean, there's a lot there. Having been in business for 22 years for major corporations, seeing how things work, being involved in some lockouts, some reorganizations, new rights deals, some new business priority. Things get misaligned as it relates to your role or your team or the resources that you get. So, in my enterprising fashion, and talking, with my wife and figuring out what we need as a family. Um, the work-life balance, the fact that I was working for the man, so to speak, for 22 years, and I knew I had at least another 22 years professionally. I wanted to, start building a practice that I was proud of, that I can be flexible, and I open up new opportunities, or lean into other areas of the business that were more profitable, but maybe I didn't get that reward in the corporate sector. So there were a number of different guiding principles and values that really gave me the momentum to build the business and to start from scratch. I wasn't, in many ways, I'm not starting from scratch. My business is just over a year old, but I had these connections, and I had the intellect, and I had the wherewithal to do things practically. And I've built partners, and I have people that also can serve as some coaches and mentors for me, or people that I trust, or they started their business similar to me, coming out of 20 plus years working for a corporate entity, and now they have their own ventures, and they have multiple business models, and that's something that I wanted to be. I've always been, entrepreneurial, and it finally took some guts coming out of the pandemic to start my own thing, and that's really now it's manifesting, and now I really enjoy waking up in the morning and knowing that I got 4 or 5 calls, and I'm making inroads, and there's some business coming in, and I'm doing some things in the startup space, and I got some business development going here, and I'm taking a consulting call, and there's active and passive income, so it's fun.
What was it like immediately though? Because you didn't have those 4 phone calls, and you didn't have, yeah, you're reaching out to your contacts, but it's like, what exactly do you do? So like, what you're consulting, but what do you consult? Like, what was it like almost immediately after the fact, and like really just getting started? Because I feel like that's the hardest part
Yeah.
for people, right? Like, it's that first month, 2 months of just being like, so what do I
Now,
do
now,
now?
yeah,
Like, I
then
like now what?
now what? Exactly. I was just gonna say you took the words right out of my mouth. It's
Sorry,
no, it's
my
okay.
bad.
You wake up and you have a to-do list that keeps growing, and you're like, I need to reach out to them. I need to do some research. I need to. Oh, sorry. We need to do some blog writing. I need to get on LinkedIn. I need to clean out my profile. I need to, it was a never ending list of things that you needed to get to, and the sooner you got to them, the better you gave yourself a chance to succeed. So that's really, again, figure shit out mode, and do as much as you can within the 24 hours of the day. Lots of long nights, but I knew that I had a little bit of cushion. No one's successful overnight, as you mentioned, and you got to be honest with yourself about what you can do well and what you need help with.
Let's shout out some of the cool stuff you've done. Who are some of the brands you've worked with? Who are some of the people, some of the teams, the leagues? If you're able and willing to shout some of this stuff out, I'm curious on some of the projects that you've been able
in
to
in the
facilitate.
last year or over my career.
Yeah. In the last year, personally, through your
Okay,
business.
well, there's some great companies that I'm working with right now. One is Rakoti. Rakoti is a true early stage startup that I'm helping, raise capital. Will help with the software development, but it's going to be similar to what we discussed on the earlier on this podcast, a way for athletes, brands, and teams to connect. With their fans, really that emotional fan data piece that's a mystery and not really um, monetized around. So that's one company. Swap Ons is a great company too that is marrying like a tangible hard product to a digital experience. There's a it's really sort of a next level product where they have some great creative artists, and it's about fan engagement. There everyone has a cell phone, so there's these collectibles or these swaps that you can pull on and off of. It's a patented magnetized technology where you can do this clean. There's water bottle swaps. They're getting into the apparel game. There's phone wallets. There's luggage tags. There's things that you can slap a QR code and really. It's ripe for fan giveaways. Everyone knows about the posters, the bobbleheads, but how you really can tap in and connect teams and have a QR code that goes to a digital experience. So I'm doing some, BD work and some strategy work there with the chairman of the company. Axion Labs is another company that I'm working with right now. They're really big into data science and innovation. So they're based out of Pittsburgh, but they're multinational. So I'm making some big introductions for them. And then, as I mentioned, there's just some fun consulting calls and things that I'm exploring right now, or getting a little bit more involved in the not-for-profit space. Some communities that are looking for keen insights and understanding the digital media world, so it could become a fruitful endeavor for them. They could plan events a little bit more effectively. Again, those are, I probably the more I think about it, the more names I could spout out. But in the interest of time, I'll keep it to
Yeah,
those two.
I appreciate that because I do have a follow up in the fact that you named 4 or 5 companies there. Then there's obviously the consulting calls, and you're working with other smaller companies, and now you're working with nonprofits. Like where, like how it's probably hard to reach out to the same people. Like right, some people in your network is like, oh, I have this company that you should talk to. I have this company you should talk to. Oh, you should work with it. Like at some point, you can only hit
Exactly.
somebody so many times. Like how do you kind of make sure A, that you're not spreading yourself too thin, but B, really waiting for that perfect time to say, okay, you have to talk to this specific company right now because I believe that they will be really great for your business. Like, because it's probably very easy to just say that over and over again to the same people. How do you make sure that you're doing it at the right time to the right people?
Well, again, you got a great question. That I'll try and answer it as quick as I can.
Thank you.
So,
No, take
no,
your
well,
time. No worries. No worries. Take
so
your time.
the thing with my ventures or trying to stay diverse and not overextend myself is something that I'm always thinking about because I want to make the most productive use of my time between networking, exploratory calls, to discovering where real opportunities are, syncing up with my business partners, being active in the startup space. But because a lot of these are more fractionally oriented, I kind of play that fractional COO where I know that I could commit 10 or 20 hours of a week to X company. I have 10 or 20 hours here, and depending on what my meetings are like or what's happening in their business, I know that I can be active in other areas. So then again, I'm starting to rely on more of a support system that I built around me, or I know that I have to go to a little bit of automation or start culling my list of to-dos to what's realistic and what's going to give me the most oomph in this week versus February, March, April. So again, it's really just building out this system and process to being a solopreneur and building a business. But the power of strategic partners is so big. Obviously, capital and building and generating revenue is huge. You try and do a good bit of everything, but you want to be real to what each business needs and how you're going to successfully grow your practice.
I love it. That's a great answer, and I think it's very important for people to hear that and understand that, right? Because once you start getting too busy, that just means you have to raise your prices. And if someone doesn't want to pay for those prices, that just means that hey, sorry, if everyone else is going to pay, you're unfortunately going to go by the wayside. Your dollar per hour goes up, and your time is obviously worth a lot of money because time's the only thing we don't get more of. I'll get to that in a little bit, but no, I think it's awesome, and I appreciate the time here today, Darryl. This is masterclass in kind of this marketing business strategic consulting area that I don't really get to talk to too many people in, which I think is really cool, especially with your time growing up in it. We didn't even talk about your time at Disney, where you spent time helping literally launch Disney Plus,
Yeah,
like one of the biggest streaming services
a
on
beta
planet Earth.
tester. Yeah,
Like,
that was fun. My
right?
whole family got involved with that one. Yeah.
Exactly. So unfortunately, we didn't have too much time to talk about that today, but no, sincerely appreciate it. Where can people find more about you? LinkedIn, the website for the business, to give us all that stuff. I'll put everything in the show notes for everybody, but
Oh,
just let us
thanks.
know.
Yeah. Well, first off, thanks for inviting me, Michael. This has been a
Of
great
course.
discussion. I loved your questions, of course, and happy to support you and your work at a value as well. Not just, you're singing me praises, but I like you being industrious, developing a podcast, everything like that, and the fact that you're active in the sports world is huge for me. You get brownie points from me. As
Thank
far
you.
as my business, yeah, I'm very active on LinkedIn. I'm probably as responsive or more responsive than most people in business. I think that's really lacking, unfortunately. So if someone found me on LinkedIn, wanted to talk business, thought that there's an opportunity, wanted to get to know me, that's always a good start. But I'm very visible. Habermandigital.com. It's easy to book a quick 30-minute consult with me there. And the power of email. and LinkedIn. It's all integrated. So, I'm not hiding anywhere. I'd love to talk and share in the dollars. I think there's a great economy here at sports and innovation that really can make meaningful connections for lots of people. And
And
yeah, go for it.
it's only growing. It's only growing. The more people I talk to in the space, the cooler the companies are, the more interesting the innovation is becoming. Like as you said, like sports, like the drama of it, but it's also, and I've said this probably on like the last 3 shows that I've had, it's the only appointment television left. Like there are very few TV shows that you have to watch at the same time as everyone else, or you're going to miss out on the conversation. Like you can't miss, the college football championship game. Like you're either going to watch it or you're going to learn about it as it's happening or right after it happens and know who wins, and then that's kind of it, right? So the innovation, the dollars, everything that is around sports, it's for a very specific reason. These media rights deals for the NFL, right, $10 billion a year for these channels to just have the NHL or the NFL, and now YouTube is going to be paying 2.5 billion. Like just these numbers are astronomical, but they make sense. Like it's unfortunately, whatever word you want to use strategically, it makes sense, and it's going to make more money than
Yeah,
it
look
costs.
look at
That's
the
just kind of how it
Amazon
works.
Prime, TNF deal, and they said on their first game that they ever aired, they would just oh they beat their even their most liberal estimation. They were like the numbers and the traction there. It's crazy, but yeah, no one ever would have guessed it. Think about like guys like Joe Montana, what he would have made, in this day and age versus being a star in the '80s. It's nutty, but yeah, it's amazing how much sport is continues to grow, and there's really doesn't even feel like it's oversaturation here. F1, golf, cricket coming here, rugby, pickleball,
Soccer
soccer,
is getting
yeah,
way
MLS expansion,
pickleball.
yeah.
I love playing
Yeah.
pickleball. I have zero
No,
desire to
but
watch anybody play
I'm saying
pickleball. I
all
don't really
these
get
sports
that,
are
but
coming to
yeah.
America, and there's so much growth around them. So again, that's where the power of sport as the great drama and connector of it all is super fun to be involved in and to help orchestrate some deals and be that strategic advisor for many in this space.
Well, I appreciate you for what you're doing, man. Hopefully, we can get some cool shit coming down the pipeline here. So, thank you very much one more time, Darryl Haberman. He's the president of Haberman Consulting, formerly with the NHL and Disney. Darryl, time's the only thing we don't get more of, so I appreciate you giving me some of yours. I appreciate the audience for giving us some of theirs. So, I want to thank everybody. Make sure to go check out habermandigital.com. I'll have everything in the show notes. But other than that, appreciate everybody. Have a great
Thanks
night. Thanks,
again,
everyone.
Michael. Bye now.